Good day to you, my friend. I'm Jeff Jones. I'm the pastor of the Heritage Baptist Church here in Columbus, Indiana. And it's time to grab our Bibles. We're going to look at a passage of Scripture I think that will be help to all of us. If you would, turn to Hebrews chapter 10. We're going to begin in verse number 23 here in just a moment. Hope you're having a great day and living for the Lord and enjoying your life and serving Him to the fullest. I started a short little series not too long ago. I began with this thought from Hebrews chapter 12. Let me read 3 verses for you. It says, "Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him that endured such contradiction of sinners against himself, lest ye be wearied and faint in your minds." I found that word consider an interesting word, and coupled with it, consider him. And so I've preached a little series on consider. In the first place, and always the first place, is to begin with God. The Bible begins in Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God. And so we are to consider him, it says. He endured, and we are to consider him in verse 3, lest we be unable to endure. For if we don't consider him, it's saying here that we will be wearied and faint in our minds. But if we do consider him, the one that did endure, it will help us to endure also. We'll see what he went through, how he was betrayed, how he was treated in an unkind way, hateful way. People were angry, rage-filled people at him. And we take offense at things, sometimes such little things, and get so bent out of shape. But he endured, it says, such contradiction of sinners against himself. It'd be one thing if he somehow was worthy of the hate or worthy of the backstabbing, but he was not. He was innocent in every place. And I don't think we can say that. And we do bring some of the trouble down upon ourselves. But even if we didn't, we can learn from him how to endure. And so that was the first message, to consider him. Begin with him. Start with him. Come aside and be alone with him. And then in Galatians chapter 6, we have the second thing. It says in Galatians 6, verse 1, it says, "Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such an one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. If any man think himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself." And it goes on through there. Wonderful, great chapter. But for our purposes here, the second message was to consider yourself. First, you consider him, and that enables you to realistically, honestly, truthfully look at yourself. And this is dealing in a passage about helping to restore another brother. And you cannot help. We looked at the passage from Matthew chapter 7 about the mote in our brother's eye, the beam in ours. And if we don't honestly deal with ourselves, and so we are to consider him and learn of him, be like him, look back at ourselves. Isaiah did that. He saw the Lord high and lifted up, saw him for what he was, that he saw himself for what he was. And so there is an order here. There's a divine order. Consider yourself after considering him. And the thing I want to deal with today is in Hebrews chapter 10, and you may be already there. Hebrews chapter 10, verse number 23. We find another consider. It says in Hebrews 10, verse 23, "Let us hold fast the profession of our faith without wavering, for he is faithful that promised, and let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. And so there it is again, that word consider. Let us consider in verse 24. Let us consider one another. You've considered him. You've seen what he is. You've considered yourself. You have seen what you are. And now you have the ability, after doing all that, to look outside, to look at other people. And your whole bent, your whole desire is to help. And so many people jump over the first two steps. They don't consider him, they don't consider themselves, and they approach other people, maybe in an honest desire to help, but they're not really there yet. They're not worthy of trying to help yet. And it comes across very often as hypocrisy. And it says in Matthew 7, talks about that, thou hypocrite. You're not dealing with yourself. You try to come help me. That seems foolish. And so we're to consider one another. There's a neat little order here. If you look at verse number 22, it says, let us draw near with a true heart and full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience and our bodies washed with pure water. So it says, first of all, let us draw near. And so that deals with us getting close to God. Verse 23 says, let us hold fast the profession of our faith. It has to do with dealing with us. So we're getting close to him, we're dealing with us, and now, verse 24, let us consider one another. So there is that order again, I think, that progression that we see. And so those three little things, that would be a great message, sort of a summer message, a garden message, a lettuce message. And so that word consider here, it means to give attention to fix our attention on something or upon someone, to give continuous care to that thought, idea, person, family, to watch over them. And this is in a benevolent sense, that we're doing all these things, motivated, constrained by the love of Christ and for our love of our brethren. And so we're to help in every way. Now, the word provoke is used in a different way in Ephesians chapter 6, dealing with family. Chapter 5 deals with a husband and wife, that spousal relationship, and how our relationship is a mystery. It's speaking of Christ and the church, and turns just a little bit still in the family. Chapter 6, verse 1, dealing with children. Chapter 6, verse 5, dealing with servants. But inside of that, Ephesians chapter 6, it says in verse 4, and ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bringing them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And so the provoking is not the problem. There is a good way to provoke and a bad way. There is a good way to be angry and a poor way to be angry. So the provoking is not to stir up wrath or bring someone to a place of wrath, which is a possibility if you do things in the wrong way. A father can provoke a child to a place of wrath by how they do, how they say, the tone of which they say, the intent in what they say, they do things. And so our intent here is not to provoke people to wrath. Our intent is to provoke them to love, to a place where they would be like the Lord. When we talk about the law of God, the law of liberty, we're talking about the law of love. And so we're trying to bring people to that place where there's love in their heart, love in their mind, that it works itself out. It says in good works. And 1 Corinthians chapter 13 is a chapter on love, on charity. Charity is love in action. So we're bringing people to a place of love, to good works, where charity is being worked out around them, to people they know, meeting people they don't know. And so we're trying to provoke that, to bring it up. I think one of my jobs, one of my great duties I see as a pastor to people, and I pastor people that are not even members of our church in a sense, I'm trying to help them. And so I'm trying to pastor as big a group, a large area. Some people put themselves under my sphere of influence, and I'm seeking influence over people. I'm trying to pastor my neighborhood in a sense. I'm trying to be helpful, kind. But in that, I always see my job as this: wherever somebody is at, to bring them up to the next step, whatever the next step may be. Someone's not saved, they need to be saved. If someone is saved and not baptized, they need to be baptized. If they're saved and baptized, if they're not a member of a good Bible preaching church, they need to be a member of that church. If they're saved and baptized and a member of a good church, I want to try to help them to be involved in that church. If they are not reading their Bible, the place where they are reading their Bible. Maybe they're not reading it through in one day, but they're reading some of it. And if they're reading some of it a little bit, that they'd read more and that they would study more. If they're not praying, they would pray. And so my job, and in many ways your job, is to help people to get the next step, to help them see how they are to consider Him, to consider themselves, and the cycle is complete is when they consider others. And so that's a big job, to provoke. It means to stir up, to turn the embers over that have died down and add to the fire, to give it the opportunity to flame up again. I've found this, that some people, they have such a spirit, they have such a sour sort of disposition, that some people pour water on other people's fire. They literally suck the joy out of their life. They bring them down. They are negative in the sense that they just debilitate other people. And I know that shouldn't happen. We should be able to go on somehow anyway, but it is a reality, is that some other people are not very helpful to our walk. I don't want to be that guy. I want to help people. I want to be considerate of people, their situation. There was, if you don't know me, there was about 7 years where I was away from God, where not in church, not in the Bible, didn't consider what God wanted for me in my life. And it was after, the waywardness was after I'd spent some time in Bible college. I got out of sorts with God at Bible college. And so I came back to the Lord. The Lord used my children in a real way to deal with me. And so He humbled me. I felt the chastening hand of God on my life. And I'm glad I did. It was a good thing that He brought me back to Himself. And so because of what I've gone through, I can, I think, be considerate of some of the things other people are going through. There is a patience that God has taught me, a long-sufferingness towards people that are trying to figure it out. And that is many times a difficult spiritual habit to reestablish, is to be faithful in church, to be on time at church. We got back in church, but we were never on time in church. And a lot of that had to do with me, just dragging my feet. And God brought me to those places and places of growth. So I'm consider that. I'm concerned for people. I want to be strengthening. I think that this deals here. Let us consider one another to provoke unto love and unto good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together. That faithfulness is not just that you would just go to get, but you're going to give. You're going to the house of God that you might give of yourself to other people, that you'd be in the presence, that you would rub shoulders, that there would be an iron sharpening iron sort of ministry going on in your life. And so you're doing those things. And so I remember when we had first started the church here in Columbus, I think it was maybe a year or 2 years in, probably 2 years in, we met a family, and Mike is the husband, father in the family. And I think we'd maybe known each other for about a year, I guess. And I'd been talking about doing a race. and he partnered with me. And I don't know whose exact idea that was. I think it had a lot to do with him. And he wanted to partner with me to do this race. We're going to do a half marathon. And that partnering with him, and we didn't go out and train together. We trained separately. He lives outside of the city, and I live in town. But it was more this just an encouragement sort of thing. We were going to do the race together. He was going to stay with me. I said, "Oh, you're faster than me." And he said, "No, I'm going to stay with you, preacher." And so the partnering together, that made me accountable for one thing, but it also was an encouraging thing. And so there were words of encouragement along the way. And I think it was a mutual thing, but I just remember my side of it, that he would encourage me. He would ask how I was doing, how you doing with training. He would tell me about how he was doing. We'd pick each other up. And so there were words of encouragement. There was, along the race, there was water to be had. His family, my wife, there were people that would meet us at certain places along the race, and the race provided water, but there was also the encouragement of our families along the way. And then there was the example that Mike was going to finish, that helped me. And I knew, man, I got to finish because he's going to finish. And so his kids had signs, along the way, funny things, run daddy run, and I don't know, just things, just funny little things about finishing the race. And I'm sure they prayed for us, prayed for me. And isn't that the way the Christian life ought to be? We are so picky, we are so brutal, we are oftentimes so unkind to those that have stepped out of the race. They are not where they ought to be, and we brutalize them. That is not the way to provoke them unto love and to good works. It is to partner with them, to come alongside them, to run with them, to encourage them in words and in actions. Your example is a tremendous thing to help, and a loving spirit involving other people to encourage them, and refreshment for their soul along the way. They need the Bible. They need God. They need prayer. They need you to show up at church to encourage them. I see this happen from time to time, and it is so, I don't know, it's so disappointing when this happens. But there's maybe somebody that's worked there. A family's working to get another family to show up, and so that other family shows up. They visit their church, and then the family that invited them is not there. That's tough. I've seen it over the course of my life, and that's disappointing. And so we want to be a friend. John 15 verse 12 says this: "This is my commandment, that ye love one another, as I have loved you." Man, that is a tremendously powerful qualifier. We are to love one another as he loved us. And so our love ought to be a spiritual love, a godly love, a Christ-like love. It says in Titus 2:7, "In all things showing thyself a pattern of good works." And these are things that we're bringing into this provoking process. As we consider one another, I'm to love them as Christ loved them. I am to show in front of them a pattern of good works. I need to be faithful in front of them, faithful in the house of God. It says in Hebrews 3:13, "But exhort one another daily while it is called today, lest any of you be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin." And so how often should we see each other? How often should we connect? I think as much as possible. In the sense that, and I get it, we have other duties, we have a life to live, but today especially, we have the ability to contact and touch a life so much easier than it used to be. And so we need to influence, provoke on a daily basis, if at all possible. Let me tell you this, considering some things that it is not. It is not control. You're not trying to control someone else. Maybe you are trying to control somebody else. That is not what provoking unto love and to good works is. When you consider someone else, you're not trying to control them. You're not trying to master them, trying to rule over them. And some people feel that sort of pressure from people, this this puppetry thing that is going on. That is not of God. Every man has one master, that is the Lord. And so there are things that we allow the Holy Spirit to do. We may try to help. Our intent is to love. Our intent is to influence and guide and be an example, to provoke, to stir up, to be considerate, to be concerned, to watch over. But it is never to control someone else. And there is a rebel inside of me. And when I feel the pressure of control, I want to bow up against that. I want to push back against that. That is not always a good thing inside of me, obviously. But it is not a helpful thing for people to try to control me. It is not manipulation. When I think of manipulation, I think that if I'm trying to influence somebody, I'm trying to get something out of them. I'm trying to get something back from them. I'm trying to get what I want. What the intent here, to provoke, to consider one another, is to get his intent, to get what he wants. He wants praise. He wants worship from each person. He wants service to him, not to us. And so we're going to avoid manipulation. And you've been there, where people have tried to manipulate you, and you find out behind the curtain what really is going on, and it's an ill intent. And so let's be pure in our desires to help someone. Let's be of a pure heart in this, avoiding manipulation. Paul talks about it oftentimes. I've come to you in simplicity, genuineness in spirit. It is not self-serving, and some of this is overlapping, obviously. It is not a self-serving sort of thing for other people to serve you. As a pastor, I speak the way some pastors are. It's about building their kingdom. God deliver us from that. It is not ranting. Not ranting. It's not being in somebody's face, spittle flying out, you punching your finger in somebody's chest. That is not provoking unto love and unto good works. And I believe in an honest sort of love, at times a very blunt way of speaking to people. But we are to speak the truth in love every time. And so it's not a rant. It's not some sort of unhinged sort of diatribe. It's us speaking the truth in a logical way, trying to build line upon line, precept upon precept, brick upon brick, trying to build a life, trying to get somebody from this place to the next step up. And it is not anger. We're not doing it in an angry way. And I think if you'll remember, for many of us, where we came from, that'll help us to have the patience. Some people were incredibly patient with me in the course of my life, trying to help me. Patient beyond imagining at times, because there are times that we go up and then we go back. And when we go back, I'm not doing anything to that person. I'm not trying to, I'm weak. They're weak. And so we're not getting angry. We're loving them, concerned for them. So what it is, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not control, not manipulation, not self-serving. It's not ranting. It's not anger. But it is this. It is loving. It is loving. This is a selfless act to provoke other people. When you show up, let's say, because it's connected to this, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, but it says here, exhorting one another, and so much the more as you see the day approaching. This provoking is when you show up at a place, you show up at church, it's not, man, who's going to say hello to me? Who's going to wait on me? Who's going to take care of me? Who's going to do whatever this for me? And there are things that I get when I go to church, blessing after blessing. Keep on following me. But when you go, it is with this intent to be selfless. It's not about me. It's about me serving the Lord. It's about Him. It's about me being a blessing to other people. So this is a selfless, loving, Christ-like. As Christ loved us, we're to love others. And so it's not to get, it's to give. And so as you're giving out, you say, man, I've got to get. That's why you consider him. And then you consider yourself. And so you leave church, you leave the presence of people. And it can be incredibly draining dealing with people and their problems. And like I said, some people are so negative, even when you're trying to help them. They're like an animal that is sick or hurt. You try to help a dog and there's something stuck in their paw. They want to bite back. And so I've been bitten. You've been bitten trying to help people. I've bitten people that are trying to help me. And so, but we continue to reach out. We continue. It's a selfless thing. But if you get bit, you got to go back. You have to consider him again. This is a constant, daily, in the moment thing. Considering him, considering thyself, so that you can consider others. It is a loving, selfless thing. It is for Christ. It's not for me. It's for Christ. If I was doing it for me, I would have quit a long time ago. Hey, they don't love me. They're not receiving this. They're angry. They have said things that are not true about me. And if it was for them, I would not continue on. But I do it for him. For him. And you ought to do it for him. We consider one another for him. It's for his sake. We do it for good, not for bad. We do it for good, for the good of them, the good of ourselves. I've seen this happen. It has happened in my life, that I have ministered to people. I've considered them, helped to bring them. I didn't cause it, but I've helped them to take steps up in their life, and then it turns where they have helped me. And so oftentimes when you help others, you help yourself. For good, you do it for the good of their family. You do it for the good of their church, of your church. And so it's always for good. And then it is this, it rejoices in maturity. It rejoices in any progress you see. And I think it's probably one of the great takeaways, that when I have been running and I need to get back at it, you pray for me about that. That when I've been running, and I really enjoyed the races, never thought in my head that I'd ever finish first. Not possible. Ain't going to happen. There are elite runners. That's the neat thing in these races, that people at every skill set, and many times there are people that are professional runners are in these races. I'm never going to run a race, but wherever you're at in your ability, there are people that stand on the sideline and cheer you that you took another step. Hey, keep going. Proud of you. You're doing a great job. People that are walking get that. Why in the world can't Christians encourage somebody else, even though if it is at a slow pace that somebody's come along in their life, even if it's not as fast as you did? Why in the world can't we encourage somebody else? I'm proud of you. I'm glad you're making some progress. It's maybe not as fast as what we want or as fast as what the Lord wants, but I'm glad you're moving in the right direction. Why in the world can't we do that? It rejoices in maturity. It rejoices in progress, growth, Christ-likeness. And then lastly, it is grieving at backsliding. We're not joking about it. It's not funny. It is something many times to mourn about. It is a serious thing to go back on the Lord. And so we're grieved about it. So we're not making a public spectacle of it. We're not turning it into some sort of big joke at their expense. We're not backbiting. We're not gossiping. We're not telling the world to make them look bad. We're talking to the Lord about it. I think a prayer in the sense where we're trying to provoke somebody to love and to good works, when they don't receive it, when they go backwards on it. Dear God, you've seen the work we poured into this person. They've gone backwards. Lord, it grieves us, and I know it grieves you. Lord, help me to consider you, to not stop myself. Help me to keep going forward. So we learn a lesson there, but we're also praying for them that they would wake up, that they would see where they're at with Christ. And so I hope this has helped to you. consider him. That's the big first step here. Consider him. Consider thyself, and fix you, get you right, get you cleaned up. And we're not perfect people. I hear that all the time. There's no sense even saying that. I know we're not. But God says that ye which are spiritual restore. There is a way to be spiritual, and there's a way to know it. And so when you get those things lined out, and it shouldn't take 10 years to do this, by the way. Get spiritual. And I probably got a message coming about this. It's to be spirit-led. Galatians 5. Be a spirit-led person. God will get you in the right place so that you can help others, that you can consider one another. What a great thing to spend your life doing these three things and looking, paying attention, going through life till the day that you can't. And let's lift up the Lord. God bless you. If you need Christ, reach out. I'd love to show you from scriptures how you can know that Jesus Christ could be your Savior. Jesus Christ died for every man, every woman, every child. He has made salvation available to you, and you are able to call upon him to be your Savior. Turn from whatever you're trusting in and trust Christ. He'll save your soul. And I'd love to help you with your walk with the Lord. So God bless you. Have a great day.